Yeah.
All right, sorry everyone. We had it dialed in the second time we did this, but now we're having technical difficulties again. So welcome to episode 3 of Taking a Break with Detroit Speed. We're here with Matt Butts, one of our project fabricators, and we're also here with Dan Oddy, sales and technical engineer. So pretty much what we're doing is, I know most of you are quarantined or, social distancing, staying at home. So we're pretty much here to just answer your questions, whether you want to talk about project cars or products, whatever it may be. We're here to answer your questions and just chat. So what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Dan and Matt, and we'll proceed.
Got something.
There you go. You got audio too?
Yeah, we click it anyways.
All right. There we go. Okay.
We did it.
So like I said, Matt Butts and Dan Oddy are here now. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to go ahead and send them in the chat, and we'll make sure we mark them down as we go along. But we also made some social media posts last week talking about episode 3. So there were some questions that came up. We'd like to address those now. So hopefully you're here in this chat if you've asked us a question. But the first one is from Bill Bailey, and he has a 1969 Camaro. He's owned it since '82, and back in the '90s, he put on some lowering coil springs along with Herb Adams VSC shocks and a front sway bar. So recently he added a 600 steering gear and body mounts, and he's at a point now where he wants to add our upper and lower control arms as well. So his car sits pretty low in the front. I don't think he wants it to go much lower, but he noticed that our arms have a drop spring pocket. So does that mean that his front end would sit even lower if you use the same coil spring and shocks, or is it something he's going to have to change?
Yeah, so our lowers, the drop pocket is about 3/8 of an inch, so your car would be lower just by bolting our lowers on. And if you like the way it's at, like Matt mentioned, you could run a rubber isolator under that spring to give you some more height back in there to make up for that drop pocket. Or we actually do sell a stock height spring that you could buy as well. I know a lot of the sales guys will do it that way. We'll say our Speed Kit 1 with the tubular uppers and lowers. They'll do the stock height spring that we have called out in there instead of the drop height. That way you're not too low. Especially, it all depends on your tire size and things like that. But that's what I'd recommend is either use an isolator with your drop spring that you have now with our lower control arm, or go ahead and get our stock height spring, and then you should be pretty close to where you're at now.
Perfect. Good to hear. So let's see. Another question we received. Now this is something where I feel as we go through all of these webinars, we're going to address this weekly. So
Fox body stuff.
Yep. LSA_Fox on Instagram, which he also has. It's an LS swap Fox body.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, that's a nice car.
Like the Nardo gray,
Yep.
or Battleship gray. It is a beautiful car. I'll show you pictures of it. But he said any Fox body suspension parts in the works. So where do we stand on Fox body? What's new? What can we tell them?
Yeah, we're making progress each week here. So right now, like I said, we've test fit the subframe connectors in it last week. Doing some final stuff on that right now. The mini tubs we got test fit in there and welded in there. I think was last week.
In the last couple of days or so.
That's been test fit. Everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and get that released. And then the rear quad link system we're doing is pretty well in the car. Last I looked.
Yep.
And hopefully gonna be on the ground this week to do a little test driving. So yeah, kind of exciting week or two here with the Fox fans. So should be pretty awesome. So
yeah, getting close to street miles anyway.
That's right.
So.
And that's exactly where we want to be right now. It's gonna be awesome. So let's see. We have another question from Jeff G. He says, "Let's talk about front spindles, mainly 67 to 69 Camaro Nova, Chevelle, 70 to 73 Camaro. You see some other manufacturers make an upright that helps correct geometry and uses newer vet hubs and brakes, along with improved Ackerman, etc. Why are these not offered by you guys for the bolt-on folks?"
Well, if you know, we do have an A-body spindle that we did, years ago when we came out with that platform that helps geometry and it's a drop spindle, and it's actually really, really nice. We have it forged out of 4140 steel. There's a 2-step heat treat process. So yeah, so that we have for the 64 to 72 A-body guys, your Spindle Malibu guys. We've talked about maybe trying to use it for the 67, 69 Camaro spindle. They are similar, but we haven't really gone further than that. But as far as going to a whole hub pack deal, we haven't really looked at that much. That would probably require a whole different design in the spindle. So
yeah, I guess the fact that we already offer it for the subframe, the full hydroform frame,
right.
it's kind of an in-between option, really. A lot of people are fairly happy with their stock spindles, and then if they're that unhappy, it seems like the next upgrade is to get the steering rack, the hydroform frame, and of course the better uprights with the late model Corvette style hub backs. So
I think also a big thing to consider too, I know this is a question that we've commonly received in the third gen sector, because we are running a prototype spindle on the DSEZ, and I think the biggest thing where it comes down to is, cost versus demand as well.
It's
a big key part.
It is.
Because, there could be a handful of guys that really, really want, a prototype part that we have that could be offered in a billet option, but, that's where the cost comes in.
Right.
If you have a low production, number, the cost will be up there. And then if you want to go ahead and you want to make a forging, the cost to initially start that would have to be offset by a very extreme demand. So it's just one of those things where, if the demand's not there, then it's not something that will be considered. But I mean, we do have other options that solve some geometry issues like Dan had mentioned. So I think that pretty much answers that. Mario R here asking a question: which exhaust brand do you normally use on LS engines?
I mean, that's multiple things. As far as Camaros, Corvettes, and things like that go, header-wise, we use ProFab headers. Build all of our headers, private label, and then we have also used some Hooker LS swap headers as well. Super cost-efficient option right there. They're stainless. They're really nice, fit well, and then pretty much exclusively have been using Hooker mufflers on most all of the builds, unless a customer requests otherwise. And then from that point, we scratch build everything in 3-inch stainless. So everything's pretty much one-off custom.
So what cars have we built that use the LS swap headers?
We used them on the 3rd gen, and then did we do a Corvette with the Hookers, a C2 Corvette?
No, we've got that. I mean, our car might be a little different, but we have a production Corvette header now.
Yeah, our car is the ProFab.
Right. Ours is the production header.
Right.
I do recall.
I also believe we used them on a Nova, that LT swap Nova with Hooker headers.
Yeah, that's right.
We've used 2 or 3 sets of those here, and they have been really nice.
Ironically, the LT swap Nova, that never made it to the website either.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete build.
Was that LT5 swap?
I think it was LT1.
It was 75 Nova.
75. It was a Disco Nova.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
We fabbed up
it's a cool car.
A subframe into, and they LT swapped it.
Yeah.
So that I don't think that made it to the website, but that did have the Hooker.
Yeah.
It did have an LS. I mean, the LT isn't. It's not very different, but they do make LT LS swap headers. So yeah, that is our exhaust brand of choice, and we touched on this a little bit last week as well. So another question that popped up was how many hours. I don't want to go too into depth on it, but what are some of the things that kind of help you estimate, the length of making an exhaust system on a car?
I mean, we're, for a dual 3-inch stainless with an X pipe, if it's a first or second gen Camaro, scratch build nose exhaust, hangers, V-bands, tailpipes, that whole thing is typically about a week to do here in the shop. Everything is TIG welded. The fit is super, super nice. So, obviously the time goes up, the bigger the car is, or we have done a dual exhaust system with the electric cutouts, or, multiple mufflers and or resonators. So, the complexity can go up and it can take longer. But typically about a week to do a really nice kit in one of these first or second gen Camaros for sure.
Awesome. So another question that popped up, this one was from Instagram. What length rear end for a 63 Nova with hour wheel tubs to get the biggest tire underneath?
Yeah, so 63, I think we've talked about 295 tire is really what fits best on like an 18-inch wheel, 18 by 10 with our tubs in those cars. And typically we try to put the wheel center in the middle of the wheel hoop. So that kind of leans us to like an axle flange length of 52 1/4 across the axle flange to axle flange is what we recommend. And I believe it's like an 18 by 10 inch wheel with a 5-inch backspace, a 295, 35, 18 tire size is kind of our standard, what we've been going with for years. And it looks good and fits good. So that's kind of our numbers. So.
Perfect. Let's see. Jim Phillips says, tell us about the new GM power steering sector that you're advertising. What is different / improved about it? So Jim, I'm hoping you're referring to the 600 steering gear. We've been running an advertisement on that recently. That's kind of like our hot item right now. I know it's bringing up a lot of conversation and people are asking a lot of very good questions about it. So you want to touch on that briefly?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a 600 box that we've had for a number of years now, but we kind of went after it and we kept it basically the same housing, but changed all the internal guts in there to give you a little bit more. Yeah, there it is. Give you a little bit more performance feel. It's a 12.7 to 1 ratio, so it's just got a really good effort to it. The steering wheel, it feels very much like a sports car of today would be compared to a 50-year-old steering system. So. Putting that in a 50-year-old car, it just makes it feel that much better and more comfortable when you're driving. It's just a nice box. I've got it in my 3rd gen. I've driven most of the cars here that have it, our old Chevelle and things like that. So it's definitely one of the nicest steering feels I've ever had driving anything, here or otherwise. And
you've got quite a few miles on your car now with that box in it. So
yeah, we've had a couple different ones in there, but yeah, it's since 2013 I've had it in there.
Yeah. So again, you're a daily driver, so
yeah,
it does get to see a lot of use and gives us good feedback on the box.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest comment I received on it is they want to know more about why is it priced the way it's priced. You want to touch on kind of justify why we established that cost for it?
Yeah, and it's kind of with that whole Spindle deal. I mean, we do pretty good. We don't have massive volumes like the big three do, so our piece price for these parts aren't great, so that kind of works into the cost of it. But between the cost of getting the housing in, and there's a lot of parts and pieces in there, you got the spline shaft, the covers, everything in there, it just adds up to the cost it's at.
And I think the big thing too, I mean, you touched on it in our control arm video as well. You kind of had that statement where our brand, we're established as a you get what you pay for brand.
Yeah.
Where we put in the time and engineering to make sure that what you receive is nothing short of the highest quality. So you can ensure when you pay this price, it's not something that's going to require maintenance all the time. You won't have to keep swapping it out. It's one of those you put it in and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as like your typical remanufactured parts store steering boxes.
No, it's all new stuff. It's like a brand new box, and you could drive a car with a $300 or $400 steering box in it and buy that, and then if you got in a car with our box in it, you would hate that you spent that much money on that box. When for more money, you could have what you really wanted. Because once you drive a car like that, you're not going to want to go back. It's like you said, it's quality. It's get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
so what's different than the stock box? What do we do internally that makes it more robust and better than a factory steering box.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
oh, he already slid down. Where'd he go? Oh, you knocked it out. Okay. I don't recall who asked that question. Jeff, thank you for that question. So Dan's going to touch on that a little more.
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, this box goes back even before I started working here. Kyle and the guys kind of figured out what they wanted as far as the torsion bar size of it and the fluid mechanics and the flow and all that. So I've learned when I came here about the box, but like I said, it's all new parts. It's like a brand new box. You know, like if you couldn't have a modern car with a rack and pinion like you do today, this would be the box you'd have. This is the box I think GM would come up with, hopefully, for performance, like a new Camaro or Corvette or whatever. You know, if you couldn't use a rack and pinion, this is the box to use because it's going to be most similar to a rack and pinion feel. Like I said, there's rack and pinion bolt-on kits that are out there for stock older subframes that weren't designed for rack and pinion. And of course, you get geometry issues and things like that. So this is the best thing you could have on your car for steering if you couldn't put a rack and pinion where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. So the feel just off of center is a lot better than a lot of the factory boxes. It's a lot tighter, whereas a lot of the original style boxes, you typically have several degrees in both directions before you actually have any output at the wheels. Whereas this thing, it's
what you put into is what you get out.
Yeah, it's tight. It feels nice. The responsiveness is a lot better than what's out there.
Yeah, the response is definitely the fun part.
Last thing I want to touch on about this, so this steering box replaces GM 800 box.
Mm-hmm.
So the GM 800 box came on a lot of different vehicles, and we've only tested it on A bodies, G bodies, 3rd gen. So it has the potential to fit other applications, but these are applications that we have not tested. So this is a question I see a lot. Will this fit my S10? Will this fit, the early full-size GM vehicle? And the answer, it's a gray area. We have not personally done it, but that's not to say it won't fit. But if there is anyone out there that has used the R600 steering gear on a vehicle that we don't list under an application, definitely contact us and let us know, because the more vehicles we can add to this list, the better. But it's just something that we haven't addressed here.
Yeah, I mean, GM, I think, had that box from 64 to 92 or 6, I believe, even like Impalas and Caprices of the 90s.
Yeah, there's a ton of vehicles that it went on. So for us we have to acquire all of these different vehicles or bring them in to test fit. So that's a huge undertaking in itself, but that's not to say that it won't fit.
Right.
Let's see. John here has a question. If I was to purchase upper and lower control arms separate, what will be the priority in installation? Should they be installed at the same time? This is for a 2nd gen Camaro. Mm-hmm. So is there a preference on if you install them or if you purchase them separately, how should you install them? How would you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, what I always told people was that the biggest bang for your buck is going to be in the upper control arm. I think you get more geometry gains with caster and camber with the upper. I mean, lower gets you some too, but if you had to pick one, I'd go with the upper first and the lower second. Obviously, you do them together, that's going to be your best bet. But just with the caster tuners and everything there, the way we did the geometry of it, that's your best bang for your buck if you had to pick one over the other.
Mm-hmm. So how now you talk about caster tuners? What's the big advantage of the caster tuners that we offer in our cross shaft?
So we when you get these control arms, we give you a sheet to take to your alignment shop on how to set your caster camber in tow. You can see in that picture there those little slugs that are zip tied into the cross shaft. We have 0, 1s, and 2s, and that basically shifts the whole location. So one thing you could do is if you wanted to gain a 1/4 inch of caster, you could just change that slug without having to realign it. You just pop those slugs out, put the new ones in that come. You can see them in the picture there. Those little 4 slugs there. Those are the extra ones you get. We recommend starting with the ones that are in there. But if you're going to say you want to do say more than 4 or 5 degrees of caster, you probably want to put those in, or you can flip them around. You know what I mean? To change that positive caster setting. So that's why we do it that way to give you.
Okay. And even another, did you touch on camber as well?
I didn't. Well, that was that's how we built the tubes, to give you a little bit more negative camber. Again, I think we kind of recommend like -1/2 to 3/4 for normal street use. Mm-hmm. More than that if you want to do some track stuff, but that's all built into the geometry of the control arms. So
perfect. I think that answers that one for you right there. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and you want to purchase them separately, definitely try and go with the upper first. So Eric Lane here, he says, let's talk about shock angle on the Nova kits. And why doesn't Detroit Speed offer a on-demand height adjustment, airbags and such? I think that's a great question because there is an option for height on demand. You guys want to kind of talk about that? What we have, what we have to offer when it comes to something like that.
The J-Ride stuff.
Yep, we have. You have personal experience with it on the Riviera project we're doing right now.
Yep. Yeah. So J-Ride does offer. It is a hydraulic ride height adjust system. So basically, it looks pretty much like a conventional coilover, but then in the base of it, there's a piston, and then there's a hydraulic pump that basically is plumbed out to all 4 coilovers and does give you some ride height adjustment. We've never done anything here as far as air ride or anything like that, but we have used this J-Ride system at this point, and it is very nice, especially for a bigger car. We're using it on the Buick Riviera project to get it good and low, and it's definitely a really cool system. It works well. And the nice thing too is when you raise and lower the car, it doesn't change the spring rate.
That's exactly what I was going to touch on next. It's something where it works internally, so you're not changing any of your suspension settings or anything, correct? It still just acts as your standard coilover.
Yep. It's still getting that good ride quality out of a coilover.
Yep.
As compared to an airbag deal, but.
And even seeing once you guys had the J-Ride hooked up on the Riviera too, I mean, it's fast. It moves pretty quick, so you have that easy adjustment. And you see a lot of modern cars like Lamborghinis and such where they operate the same way.
Yeah.
So that's a really good height on demand option. And it is pretty much the same size as a standard J-Ride coilover, so it could adapt into many different vehicles.
Yeah, we've test fit in our subframes and things like that when J-Ride came out that years ago. I was kind of involved in going through making sure it fit our brackets and our subframe pockets and everything like that. And
we have quite a few first-gen customers with them on their cars.
Yeah. So it's a good system.
So if anyone's interested in learning more about J-Ride, you can reach out. You can either call us at 704-662-3272, or you can shoot us an email at sales@detroitspeed.com. We'd be happy to discuss more about J-Ride and how we can implement it into kits that we already offer now. So definitely keep that in mind if you guys are looking to go the height on demand route and you're not interested in airbags. Here's a good question for you, Matt. This is from Mario. He said, on a first-gen Camaro, where is a good place to mount the Holley Dominator?
So I'm going to assume we're talking about the ECM. We've done several different locations. We have put them on the firewall before, the underside of the dash, and then also, more often than not, we've been mounting them to the toe board. And so basically, we'll build a bracket, mount it to the toe board, and then basically build a false floor that's a sheet metal panel that bolts over it and protects it. So once everything's installed, said and done, the carpet's put in, it looks like the existing or factory toe board, and you never even realize that there was an ECM below it. But that seems to be the best to keep it out of the way, especially if you're doing vintage air or a bunch of audio and stuff like that. You eat up the room under the dash very, very fast. So the toe board is probably the most used location here.
Are there any other locations that you think would be a good option as well? Like, what about the third gen? Where'd you mount it on that?
The third gen, it's non-AC, it's heat only, so it ended up on the backside of the firewall. And the third gen has a lot more room under the dash than the first gen Camaros. So, like I said, you can do it, get it behind the dash. It does get to be tight. So, as far as servicing and being able to get to them, just down on the floor is a little bit easier.
Yeah, this example I just pulled up here, this is on Mark Wellborn's Camaro, the 69 convertible. So that's just a good reference for what we're doing there. Now, how do you mount it to the floor? Do you make like metal straps to bring it up off of the floor that you bolt it to?
So you can do it a couple of different ways. Typically, we'll do 2 little metal straps with weld studs. So basically, the studs protrude, and then the ECM just slips right down over the studs. The ECM is rubber isolated, and you want to make sure that you keep those to keep from just rattling it. So, and then the studs just make it locate super easy, and you just throw 4 little nylock nuts on it, and that's what retains it. So basically, you're looking at right there, that is in the toe board, and you can see the vintage air unit just above it. And then from that point, like I said, it gets a finished out sheet metal panel. That way nobody's smashing any of the wiring or the ECM itself.
See, I know I had a finished photo of that as well, so we can see if I can find that. The interior in this car was a little more stripped out than our standard. So you can kind of see there, just a little panel will go over it.
Yep.
Great question. So here's another one for you. 1971 Monte Carlo is what this guy owns. His name's Brian Smith. What engineering mechanisms do you guys use on the doors of cars with shaved door handles or keyless entry? So kind of the first car that comes to mind, it is not a shaved door handle, but it is somewhat of a keyless entry, Mo Chevelle.
That one's got handles. It's got handles on it, but it is operated by solenoids. But I don't know who made that kit.
I want to say that the door handle itself, the button on the inside of the handle, the electronic button, I want to say it was a Corvette button.
Late model Corvette.
I think it's late model Corvette, because I know we like to try and utilize as much OE product as possible. So that could be an option as well.
And if that was the case, I believe that would probably be the Malibu door latches.
That's what I was thinking in my head as a Malibu. I know a long time ago that's what we used to do.
Yep, it's a late model GM Malibu latch that operates electronically. So micro switches, and then that's what actually pops the door. Stavola's car is the same way.
There you go. That's another one.
It has a factory looking door handle, but when you push the button, instead of pushing a mechanical latch, the button actually pushes a micro switch inside of the handle, and that pops the door. But again, that would be that same late model Malibu latch assembly.
I'm pulling up, this is Mo Chevelle. So that is a machine door handle that's been recessed in, but when you put your hand into it, there's a button on the other side. It's nice rubber coated, it feels nice, and you get a little reaction out of it when you hit it, so it's not like it's senseless.
Yeah, it's got a crisp feel to it.
But I wasn't the Malibu thing. I wasn't aware of that. It's pretty cool. So there you go, guys. There's plenty of different options. A lot of it is just it's just OE products that you could pretty much find at a junkyard or order online.
It is labor intensive to swap those latches in and make them work, but anytime we can use OEM parts, the OEs definitely build parts for longevity versus a lot of the door poppers and like electric window kits and things of that nature. A lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily last as long as you'd like. So especially something like a door, you don't want those things to fail. So when we have done it, we've used OEM components and just retrofitted them in.
So Ryan, I'm hoping this is right. Breezy, he is asking, he says, last week we were talking about the JRI shocks that we offer, which are built to our specs. Do we use the same specs for a street car versus a car that's primarily used for autocross and road course? And what setup difference do we usually make between road course and autocross? So kind of a two-part question. So the first part, shock specifications, street versus track.
Yeah, I mean, the same shocks that we have on the shelf for the normal orders are on the test cars. So I mean,
their production.
It's we don't change in the valving there. I mean, obviously you have the double adjustable shocks to adjust your rebound control. That's really where the changes are between your street setting and your track events. So it all has to do with that double adjustable shock element. So, but yeah, same shock on the shelves once you're it's behind us. So
now, if you were to say, like, as far as Matt, this might be a question for you, since you've you've helped a lot with the development of the third gen and going to the track. What changes do you usually need to make between autocross and road course racing? What are the key changes that you usually need to make?
I mean, like Dan said, a little bit of your rebound adjustments, but really and truly, autocross versus road course, you're more so changing spring rates and sway bars. Sway bars being the really big one, especially like Good Guys Autocross and stuff like that. if you've got the really tight 180s, you really got to make the car rotate, and a lot of that seems to be the sway bars and, like I said, spring rates, as far as getting the car to go around those really tight courses. So
if you want to make a sway bar change that's going to help your car rotate, what change is that? Are you disconnecting the bar? Will that kind of help you get more grip? And what change warrants having to make your car turn faster?
So typically, we may be running a really light sway bar on the road course and or rear sway bar disconnected. Okay. And then when you get into the autocross, you either hook the rear bar up or go to a stiffer bar. Even some of our bars have different settings on them. So if you got a really tight course, typically you're going full stiff on the rear bar to get it to rotate, and or down in the spring rate in the front. Would also make it turn.
Yeah, even when we're at say you guys autocross with a 3rd gen, and and it's driver dependent whether Ryan's driving or Kyle or Dustin or one of the other guys here are competing with it. They have different feels of how they want the car to react. So I know we've been at the track too, and we'll make a couple laps, come back and change the spring rate, or disconnect the bar or do something different, because maybe Kyle drove it last week and then Dustin's driving it this week. He's got a different driving style. So, and same with Ryan, he's got his own driving style too. So they'll go ahead and make their changes the way they want that same car to feel based on how their comfort level. So whether it's a spring change or bar change or something like that. Usually once you set the shock valving and the rebounds and you're happy at that event, you usually kind of mostly leave it alone. And you'll like I said, you'll mess with springs and bars. So
great answer. So here's a fun question. So this guy wants to know, what's the story on the 2 1st gens on the lifts behind you guys? So you got
good cars.
So that's Kyle's 69 and his dad's 68.
Yep.
So do you know a little more backstory on his dad's car?
I do not. It is a super nice original car, though.
I know it is. I know it's a Survivor, and I don't think they've touched a thing on it.
I don't believe so. And it fires up and it runs super nice. I mean, it's pretty much all original. I mean, it's had tires put on it. It's probably had shocks and stuff put on it at one point in time. But other than that, it's a really nice example of an original 1st-gen Camaro.
I think I recall a conversation with Kyle's dad where he wants to bolt some stuff onto it, like control arms and such. But just strictly bolt-on stuff. They don't want to cut into it. But it is a pretty much all original car. It is very nice. And the 69 Camaro behind Matt there, that's a car that Kyle Tucker purchased, and it's just a project, a driver. It's got a 6-cylinder that runs like a sewing machine. But that's kind of his personal car that he'll like to dive into, make some changes, and just enjoy.
He jokes as it's his retirement project. So.
So, in this location, what do you do for tuning provisions? So, I think he's referring back to the Dominator.
That would be Jason. I mean, our in-house wiring guy he's gotten really, really good at the Holley software. He's been to quite a few of their trainings so far. So we do have access to a chassis dyno down the street from here. And then at this point, you've got a lot of options for base tunes that you can load the Dominator with and get you close, and then do a lot of your drivability and street tuning, and then we'll take it down to the chassis dyno. But that is something we're fortunate that pretty much happens totally in-house. If we get any kind of cars that are real crazy, like the 3rd gen, for example, Robin over at Holley, he'll come out and help us out with those, especially the stuff that sees a lot of the racing and stuff like that. So
and Holley's always been great for trackside support. I know they usually have, I think it's Robin and maybe 1 or 2 other guys that go out to any of the major events to assist customers out there and help them tune. But even like you mentioned, Holley offering their I think it's their EFI
their tuning
school,
class,
tuning school. It's a great thing to do if you're wanting to learn a little bit more about how to tune a car. And
it's open to anybody.
Exactly.
So anybody can go take it.
And do it. Jay Hahn just went and did it too. So it's open to the public. You just give them a call and sign yourself up for it. So
and the software for the Holley stuff is super user friendly. I mean, it's probably one of the nicest out there as far as navigating.
Absolutely. So that answers the question there. You know, we do as much as we can in-house, and any help that we need with anything, we just call Holley, and they're always available to help us out. Here's one from George. Have you guys used a factory AC system in a 1969 Camaro with an LS swap?
No, we've pretty much vintage air and everything. We've had really good luck with them over the years, and for the most part, everything gets a Gen 4 Magnum in any of the builds we do.
Yeah, everybody clean the firewall up, you know.
Yep.
You know.
They've got all the nice bulkheads, nice hoses. If you're not doing like a real crazy build, they do also have the Sure Fit kits, which bolt right in.
Yeah.
You know, there's no fabrication. They send you all the closeouts. They send you the appropriate fitting, hoses, wiring. So it's just, you know, it's pretty much as plug and play as you can get for an AC system.
Mm-hmm. And that is something that we offer on our website, as well as if you were to call in and let us know that you're looking for a Sure Fit kit or any vintage air kit. We are a dealer for them as well. So once again, 704-662-3272 or sales@detroitspeed.com. We'd be happy to talk about your AC project there on a 69 Camaro. And since we're talking about AC systems and some electrical as well, what do you guys do for harnesses on the restorations and resto mods that we build here? And that's George asking that question as well. So what's our primary source for wiring?
As far as the full harnesses go,
yes.
I mean, that stuff's all pretty much scratch built here in house. We do start with some of the American Auto Wire kind of universal harnesses. We even use some of the Builder series. We build our own like fuse box and relay assemblies. We have used, as far as engine management goes, we've used off-the-shelf Holley harnesses before, and at the same rate, you know, we've scratch built engine harnesses, which Holley sells the kit that just comes with the wiring and the pre-terminated ends, and you can build it yourself. So kind of depends on the build and what you do. But typically everything is scratch built for the most part, other than starting with the basic American Auto Wire classic update kit.
Right. And I have that pulled up here as well. I know, George, you're building a 69 Camaro, so this is the kit that you would see. But, you know, we offer American Auto Wire kits as well. We've always worked with them in the project shop and sales. So if you want any more information on those kits, just give us a call, and we'd be happy to discuss that a little more with you.
And that kit is really thorough. It comes with really nice wiring diagrams. It's updated fuses and everything like that. So it will definitely handle a lot more than the original fuse box would hold.
Yeah, it's a complete one, like probably bumper to bumper.
Yep.
I mean, they have some other levels too. There's smaller levels depending if you're just replacing certain parts of it or.
So classic update, is that essentially your is it body and engine? Is it the complete car?
Yeah, it's basically the complete car. Then obviously if you get into fuel injection, you'll have to add a little bit for that. But you know, you can repurpose certain legs in the fuse box depending on your needs. And then we also end up usually with a separate relay bank as far as controlling dual fans, your fuel pumps. If you get into blower cars, you're going to need definitely bigger relays and things of that nature. So usually we will have something in addition to that fuse box, but it is a really good starting point. And like I said, the diagrams are awesome. So
perfect. So Jared from Indiana here, he has a question on first gen F bodies, so 67, 69 Camaros. Sheet metal manufacturers are now offering mini tub ready full floors. Do you have any experience with these or any recommendations?
I've seen them out there before. I don't know. I don't think
I've never seen anybody. Yeah, I've not known anybody to use them.
Yeah, I mean, they're out there, but
I would think my biggest question on that is when they say mini tub ready, are they referring to any specific manufacturers, mini tubs? This is actually.
The ones that out there usually don't go as deep as ours do, you know.
Usually probably because the frame
rail, exactly. Yeah. Like we'll cut a little bit in the back of the frame rail because it V's out, where they'll just go up the frame rail. So you might get 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, where we can get almost 3, probably 2.5, 3 with ours.
Yeah,
so, depending on the application.
Yeah, exactly. So.
That kind of answers the question there, Jared. It's something where we have not dealt with them, but you know, like these guys said, the frame rail impedance is the biggest part of mini tub projects. So, mini tub ready floor pan may not be your option. Mario wants to know, do we have any preference between X or H pipe when we build exhausts?
We're typically X pipe. On some builds, the H just makes more sense. We just did a C10 pickup truck, and just the exhaust span is so far apart. We just ended up doing an H just to keep it more symmetrical looking. But as far as packaging, especially on first and second gen Camaros and things like that, the X seems to work out really nice, especially for your drive shaft clearance and stuff like that. So I would vote X most of the time for the stuff we do here.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, here's a question for you. This is Stanley Davis. His wife and him, they did a frame-off restoration on a 63 Corvette split window. It has original steering, four-wheel drums, and it's a 327 with 4-speed. He wants to upgrade steering and maybe upgrade to front disc brakes as well. Do we have any steering options for him that will bolt on without cutting? And he wants to try and restore it. I would like to restore it to original if I were to sell.
Yeah.
So he's looking to modify it for the time being and enjoy
Right.
it. And then if in case, if
Yeah.
the time he wants to
On
sell
a car
it.
like that, I can see that brakes and steering are tough in the factory with them things. But,
Exactly.
yeah, what we really offer, the only thing we could really help you out with is that front cradle system, which it is 100% bolt-on. So if you did want to go back to all stock, you can. Basically, it replaces the steering with a rack and pinion. So I know those stock steering systems were pretty clunky in Corvettes. So gets rid of all that mess. Has a cradle that bolts, basically your lower control arms bolt to the factory frame and bolts into that. You see the speed ray there. So the fully bolt-on kit, you could definitely put it on. If you're ready to sell it in 5 years or whatever, you can take it all back apart, put the stuff on that you took off.
Mm-hmm.
Your lowers and everything, and your spindles, and even the steering system. You could bolt all that back on. But this would obviously give you way better handling, steering, brakes. You could use a more modern C5, C6 brake with our hub pack there and spindle. So that would be a great option to solve your brake and steering concerns with that car. So, and again, you 100% go right back to where you were if you want to sell it as an original, car. So.
Mm-hmm. Nah, I've driven our car too, and I think with the speed ray on the front, it's one of those upgrades where you put it on. I don't think you'd ever want to take it off.
Yeah.
You'd be so happy with it.
I mean, keep that stock stuff for whatever you need to down the road, but
put it on a pallet.
You probably wouldn't change. Yeah.
You won't want to change it. You'll definitely want to keep that on there. So since you mentioned speed ray for the front, if we were to try and talk them into a rear option as well, what do we offer for the rear of Corvettes?
Yeah, rear. It's our first independent rear suspension system we did called the Decalink. For the 10-link system. It's a really cool kit. There is a little bit of drilling and welding where the trailing link brackets bolt into the frame there. It's pretty minor. You can do it with the body on even. We have a video of that we put out maybe a year or two ago. We did a video showing how to install the Decalink with the body on the car if that's a concern. So you don't have to upset any of that. So, but yeah, that would also give you the rear brakes to match the front. Like I said, it comes with half shafts and the sway bar back there, and their coilover shocks and springs to match the front. So it would definitely be a complete complement to the speed ray to do both systems. Like I said, there's a minor bit of fabrication. I don't know, Matt's out.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean,
it's less fabrication than a quadrillink or something of that nature. So,
and once that welding and cutting part's done, if you watch your video, you can see it's pretty minor. Then it's all bolted in from there. So we've made it pretty nice with nut plates you slide inside the frame rail and the cross member and things like that to make it as bolt on as we could. So yeah, that would be, you'd have a whole different Corvette then. And if you did sell it, maybe sold it to would probably want it this way.
Yeah,
So.
Absolutely. So George here with the 69 Camaro, he has another question. Should Detroit Speed subframe connectors be installed with the suspension loaded, or does it not matter?
Any type of subframe connectors and or roll cage work, we always try to do with suspension loaded. We've got those really cool wood block stands that a lot of people see on the projects page and photos and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely any kind of work, chassis wise and roll cage, where you're welding the floor together. You don't want it hanging on jack stands because it might make the floor pan or the car in a bind somewhere. So definitely on the suspension is the best way to go about that.
Another question here. I was trying to dig into this real quick while you guys were talking. John, he's talking about the selected speed wiper kit. On our website, it shows 70 to 81, and when he goes to configure it, it only goes up to 78. You want to describe why?
Yeah, right now, years ago, we had a recessed and a non-recessed kit. So the recessed kit is when the wiper's parked, they actually go below the cowl, kind of the hidden wiper system, as they're called. In up to 78, GM had option like a Camaro or Chevelle up to 72, either non-recessed or recessed, and then 79 they were all recessed. So since right now we don't have a recessed wiper kit available, we could probably almost change it to 78 for now. But the 79, 81 guys were all recessed, and unfortunately right now we don't have a kit for those cars right now.
I know you spoke about it last week as well, but there is another gentleman asking the same question, Jim Phillips. Do we have a timeline on when that might return, or can we kind of describe what we are doing to try and remedy that right now?
Yeah, I mean, the tricky part is the kit we had before, that motor's no longer available, so that kind of put us in a jam. And if you notice, even on today's cars, like the non-recessed wiper motor we have is actually it's an OE motor, which we try to use because they're good. But usually the way the old kit worked was we had to make the motor run the opposite way to get them to park. And if you notice today, there's not really any hidden wiper kit systems out there in modern vehicles. So we're kind of in search of a motor that would go both directions. We've kind of found a few. In fact, I got one under my desk we've been looking at, but we haven't really found a good solution for our needs yet. So that's kind of the big hang up on the recessed part. We did a little development with it with Kyle's 70 Camaro maybe a year or two ago. We kind of got something working, but we needed to work with the Camaro and the Chevelle, which unfortunately the firewall shape is a little bit different, the way that motor bolts in the hole in the firewall. So we kind of had to go back to square one. But it's still kind of kicking around in the background. We definitely want to get there someday. So like I said, we got a couple things in the works. We got a couple of sample motors we've had. We just got to kind of figure out a way to get that motor or the wiper blades to park down. The Chevelles are tougher because they got that 2-inch chrome strip at the bottom of the windshield that's tough to get down over. It's got to have a pretty good extended length. So that's where we're at with that. And I can't give you any kind of timeline because right now it's not an active project, but it's still on the list, and we want to get there. So
real quick, we only have a couple minutes left. One question, this will be our final question. So one gentleman is asking, do we add any paint protection to our cars to avoid paint chips due to sticky tires? I know that's something where I know we did some with the 3rd gen, but and I'm pretty sure we're doing it with all project vehicles now. But what are we doing for that?
Yeah, we typically there's a couple of local companies that come in and do. It's basically the 3M clear protective wrap. It's the same thing that comes on a lot of your factory vehicles, late model vehicles. So definitely any of the customer project cars that we finish, before they go out the door, they'll typically get the rockers done, the rear lower quarters, the front lower fenders, and even chin spoiler, lower balance areas. Those cars, they're full builds. They take a long time. The paint's super nice, so we obviously want to protect them as best we can. The shop test cars even do get some of the protective film. They get used a little bit harder, so we don't stress it as much. They're built with a purpose, so we protect them, as decent as we can, but they do get beat up. But yes, we do, like I said, have some local guys come in and they pretty much touch almost every car that gets finished here. So
yeah, I remember when we first finished the 3rd gen, we went to pull it outside, and if none of you guys have been to the shop, we have gravel outside of our test car shop, and it had brand new BFGs on it. And it picked up a rock, flipped it up over, and it landed on the hood and chipped it.
Yep.
And I thought Austin was going to cry.
Yep.
So
first time out the door.
We're using paint protection on everything. So if you guys are going to be out driving your cars, we definitely recommend you do as well. So before we wrap this up, do you guys have anything cool you're working on? You want to talk about anything cool in the project shop right now?
We're getting ready to get started on a 70 Chevelle and also a 69 GTO. They're going to be pretty exciting.
Perfect. one of those getting delivered.
Yeah.
The Chevelle's actually
Yeah,
here.
the Chevelle's
isn't it?
here
Yeah.
on site. The GTO should be next week or so.
Okay.
So yeah, we got 2 pretty cool ones coming, and then of course, everything in process is pretty awesome as well.
Yeah,
You can't overlook
definitely.
that stuff. But
That
Yeah,
Charger,
I'm
you started
excited.
working on that thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm excited
Yeah, I knew you
about.
were
The
getting at that.
Daytona project, because we dropped a video on our YouTube channel last week. We received a Elephant engine from Mopar for that project, so that should be pretty cool. And I actually had Jason look into it. We had claimed it was number 8, but that was actually for the head castings. The actual number is located on the block, and it's number 5.
wow,
So we have Elephant number 5 for that car, so it'd be pretty cool. So we're excited about that. But so that's pretty much it, guys. This is episode 3 of Taking a Break with Detroit Speed. I'm Alex Devoletti, and thank you to Matt and Dan for coming out and talking to us today and talking to you guys. And if we didn't get to your questions today, please be sure to email tech, T-E-C-H, at DetroitSpeed.com or sales@DetroitSpeed.com, or give us a call at 704-662-3272. We'd love to chat with you and try and answer your question for you. And that's pretty much all we have for today. So I hope you guys stay safe, and we'll let you know next time we're going to take a break with Detroit Speed. So thank you guys. And
Cool. Thanks for your
hope all you guys
questions.
have a good one.
Yep.